Good morning, Bethel. Here we are, Wednesday morning. Wednesday morning.
Uh-oh.
Yep, coronavirus. Yep. And notice I just coughed in his direction. I did a little bit of shielding
I
there.
felt it, and I'm uncomfortable right now.
They say I actually just saw that the new report that came out is that coronavirus can travel 13 feet in the air, which is like double social distancing kind of guidelines there, which I just thought was interesting. And a lot of times it can travel on your shoes as well, is what I heard.
Well, this is not 13 feet.
It's not even 6.
You just point blank range coronavirus to me.
I did, if I have the coronavirus, but I feel pretty certain I don't. But
you have probably worse stuff.
We've talked about this. I think I actually had the coronavirus at one point, and my immune system was so good that it dealt with it within a matter of a day. So I think you're safe.
Your fish oils,
vitamin
and all
C,
of that stuff.
vitamin C, 1,000 mgs a day. All right, I'm saturating the body with it.
And his makeup, hair products,
Makeup?
fish oil. I mean, it's like it's awful. I go in there, I will walk by his office door, and he's like putting makeup on.
He is lying to you right now, Bethel. He is lying to you. Once again, another sin he needs to go into his office and repent of. Now,
I am in my office.
Your closet, all right? Your prayer closet that he's always praying in, but really it's sleep is what's going on in there.
How do you know the door? If the door is closed, you can't see in there.
Yeah, see, he knows.
And Jesus says, "Go into your closet to pray."
Yeah. That's what if that's what you're doing. Yeah, we'll let you stand by that today and on the day of judgment as well. But all right. But yeah. Anyway, guys, good to see y'all today. Here we are, kind of reaching the end of Joshua, and just not the end of the book of Joshua, but the end of Joshua himself here. So,
yeah.
This is kind of what we see going on. Brandon, maybe a little bit more detail here.
Well, the whole book, you're learning about how they conquered the promised land and then divided the land up. It kind of it's really, there's a lot of action in it as far as fighting and miracles and things, and then it gets tedious as they begin to divide the land out and tell the boundaries and where everything goes. So all of that is over with, and so you draw to the end. Joshua, it's very similar to Deuteronomy and what Moses was doing. Joshua is getting ready to pass, and so it's kind of like this reminder to them at the very end. Make sure you obey the Lord. Do not serve other gods. That's pretty much the message at the end of the book. Yeah. And then he dies. It's very similar to Moses' life. So,
what did you put down for your HEAR acronym here today?
Well, I've got like chapter 23, verse 11, and where Joshua, again, he's encouraging them, he's pushing on them, and he says right there in verse 11, "Be very careful, therefore, to love the Lord your God. For if you turn back and cling to the remnant of these nations remaining among you and make marriages with them so that you associate with them and they with you, know for certain that the Lord will not be with you. There will be a snare and a trap," so forth and so on. So the point there was be very careful. That's the phrase there, that you do not mix with these nations, not because the people were like, it was because the people served other gods.
That's right.
They loved other gods. They were serving Baal and whoever, and he knows if they mix with those people, the flesh, the human heart, it's just easier to chase after those things than to follow the Lord.
It says right there in verse 7 that you may not mix with these nations remaining among you, or make mention of the names of their gods, or swear by them, or serve them, or bow down to them.
That's right, and because that's what's going to happen. It happened with Solomon, case in point. Great example there. He married many other wives from many other nations. It pulled his heart away from God, and that's the thing here. So he's saying, I just basically put down, You got to be careful. Watch yourself. Why? Because the human heart is the sort of thing that you can't play with idolatry, because gods, these false gods, become a snare and a trap, and we are too easily pulled away. And I thought of some other verses in the Bible, like Proverbs 4:23, which says, above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. Guard your heart. You see the same thing in 1 Timothy 4, where Paul tells Timothy to watch your life and doctrine closely. Be careful about the way you live and what you believe.
The end of 1 John.
End of 1 John, keep yourself from idols.
Yeah.
Acts 20, when Paul is leaving the elders there, the pastors at Ephesus, he does the same thing to them. He's just kind of, watch yourself, be very careful. And that's kind of, I wrote at the top of my Here journal, watchfulness. That's an old phrase that Christians used to use, watchfulness, about being careful about what you listen to, look at, what you're letting your heart get pulled away. It's the same thing Jesus was saying in the Sermon on the Mount. Like, if your right hand causes you to sin or offends you, cut it off. Not literally, but the idea being cut off whatever pulls your heart away from God. And so I just put, Lord, help me not play around with any idol. Guard my heart against all of them, especially if you know of something, one particular thing that may be a weakness for you. You just have to be very watchful with that. So this is kind of a practical thing for me. Is I took from it just a practical thing about the Christian life. It's not all, hey, I'm safe now, I'm saved, I'm going to heaven, nothing for me to do, I can just kind of live the way I want to. Not the case. They are in the promised land. The promised land is theirs. They have the inheritance.
Let the good times roll.
But the idea is, how do I really enjoy that inheritance? Well, you can't do it without some watchfulness and discipline and being careful about about your heart, and letting it get pulled away.
Yeah. Don't drop your guard there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of brings me to my first question really here, because, it touches on it quite a bit here. It's like, hey, God did not want his people intermingling, marrying people that were not of the people of God, that worship false gods, and that would lead his people into sin, because inevitably that's kind of what happens. The Bible says bad company corrupts good morals. So it's like, if you end up spending time with people that do not love God and they're involved in a life of sin, oftentimes, and we like to justify, I'm a student minister, so a lot of times, I'll hear from students, well, maybe I can be the one that brings them to Jesus. We call this missionary dating. It never works out, ever. I've never seen one case of it working out, so I'm going to go on record saying that. And oftentimes it does quite the opposite. Instead of leading that person to Jesus, oftentimes that person will pull them away.
Usually that's
from Jesus. So what kind of principles can we take, maybe just from this chapter right here, about Christian dating, Christians wanting to marry? I mean, is it okay to marry unbeliever? I mean, what do you?
No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't. Of course, there's a wider application
dating
here.
Unbelievers,
but in specific of what you're talking about is, you shouldn't do that, because your marriage is your most important human relationship on this earth, and your partner is going to influence you more than anybody else. And your call and mandate as a couple, as a Christian couple, is to make disciples, to fulfill the Great Commission, to be fruitful and multiply. And that doesn't literally mean to be fruitful and multiply, not the way we think of it nowadays. That idea of your wife and you helping one another is the idea of raising Christian believers, children, to know the Lord. And you're just not going to it's going to be hard to do that in a mixed marriage. It's not a prohibition against mixed or interracial marriage.
That's right.
Now, a lot of people used these verses to justify segregation in marriage or in segregation, period.
Incorrectly.
Not the right way to use the Bible. Yeah. That's not what that's talking about. You would rather, if you have a child that loves Jesus, you would rather that child marry someone of a different race who loves Jesus than marry someone of the same race that doesn't love Jesus.
1,000,000,000%.
That's right. Yeah. So the idea here is, marry someone who has the same heart and passion. And if you are following Jesus and love Jesus, then that's what you should want. That's right. You should want that person. Friendship, the best friendships we have are those that we share the same ideas and loves with. We are unified. And if you're not unified on this, it's going to be a struggle. It can be a big struggle.
Yeah. I tell my students, whenever they're, because a lot of them are dating, and I say, listen, guys, like, what you need to be looking for, because the point of dating is what?
Marriage. Yeah.
It ends in marriage. So first of all, if you're like young, you shouldn't be doing it anyway, because what's the point? But second of all, what I say to them is, listen, you need to be looking for someone who loves the Lord as much as you do, or challenges you to love him more.
It's the most important thing.
Yeah. Because ultimately, like you said, these, dating results in marriage, and then marriage results in children.
Children, right.
Generally speaking. So, and listen, if you two are on different pages about your love for God, then guess which direction that child's going to go? He's generally not going to, or she's not generally not going to move in the direction with you. I mean, it's easier to stay home on Sunday mornings. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
And
now,
that's what
here's the thing too. Listen, by God's grace, there are times, yes, when it I hate to say it works, but you will have a couple where one is a believer, one is not, and the other one comes to know the Lord.
That does happen.
I have seen that happen.
That does happen.
It's
not easy.
No, and you will have instances where maybe the other one doesn't, but God is still blessing that, and those kids still, they grow up and love the Lord. But it is harder, so it's not something I would counsel anybody to intentionally.
And you still have an obligation to remain in that marriage, even if you're with an unbeliever. The Bible tells us that you have to do that, but that's why it's so important for a principle for dating, before you ever even get to that commitment, before you ever get to that marriage, that covenant between you and the Lord and that other person, is make sure you're not unequally yoked here, folks, because the long-term repercussions can be disastrous. We see that really kind of moving forward into Judges as this next generation comes up, says it doesn't even know God.
Right, yeah.
Which is just a generation from Joshua here, and it seems like they're doing things pretty well at this point. So, yeah, guys. A little bit of a detour here, but fun discussion nevertheless. Love you guys. I think this is all the time we've got for today.
Probably so.
Wish it could last forever.
I know you guys wish it was so much longer, as so much wisdom keeps pouring out.
That's right. Yeah. But alas, we'll just have to cut it short.
I like you use the Shakespearean alas.
I do. I love that word. It's nice. It's not really, a word that's, and used with a lot of frequency in the current English vernacular, but that doesn't mean it's not a bad word to use.
No, I like it.
We should bring it back, use it more often. Right. So, all right, gang. We'll be talking to y'all again tomorrow. No need to worry about that. But until then, what you can do, just for your part, is to read through Judges 2 through 3. Going into a new book of the Bible, always exciting. So do that for us in advance, and we'll see you guys on the flip side. Thanks, guys.